So these office hours are our chance to really talk with you. And so I hope that you feel comfortable unmuting during the session, asking questions either verbally or in the chat. And our goal here is to learn from you and also to teach you a little bit more about our system. We're focused on accelerating health research, and this is just one way that we're listening and learning from you as our users so that we can continuously improve our system. So our goal is to answer your questions, and here's a few questions, or at least sort of a high-level summary of what we've been hearing from you to date. The first thing here is, what is the difference between a concept set and a cohort? So I'm going to very quickly go through sort of the context for these terms within the Workbench itself. And then we also get questions about, why do I get different counts when I'm looking at Concept Set Selector as a tool versus when I'm using the Cohort Builder tool? So I'll give you a little bit more of an explanation regarding that. And then finally, how are we, the Data and Research Center, planning to address the above discrepancies that we'll highlight from this question here. So with that being said, I'm just going to go through one or two more slides and then we'll do a live demo of our tools on our synthetic environment. So what is the difference between a cohort and a concept set? We're really going to focus on sort of this piece of the overall journey that we believe all of our researchers are taking within our tools. Each of you by now is likely familiar with the concept of a workspace, but just as a quick reminder, this is the unit within our Workbench where each of your teams are collaborating on a specific project. And within your workspace, you have access to a number of different tools. These include our Cohort Builder, our Dataset Builder tool, and Jupyter Notebooks for analysis. Depending on your preferred work style and the pieces of the project that you own, you may either go directly into a Jupyter Notebook for analysis, or you may choose to start with our cohort building and dataset building tools, which we hope really allow you to select specific subsets of the much larger database for your analysis. So if any of you were involved in the previous office hours, you'll note that we walked through in detail our cohort building tool. In this office hour, we're focused on the next set of tools, the dataset building tool, which includes this Concept Set Selector feature. And it's going to be very important in answering your questions to go through, again, what the difference is between cohorts, concept sets, and these values that we're selecting while building a data set. So please, again, pause if you have any questions. But what I'm going to explain to you in the next demo is how all of these pieces fit together. And so probably a very simple way of demonstrating this or of depicting this is to think of your cohorts are the group of participants that you're selecting for study. So out of all of the hundreds of thousands of participants within the current research data set, you can choose, using our cohort building tool, to select a subset of cohorts for analysis, or excuse me, of participants for analysis. These participants have a very rich wealth of health information in our current data set. We use the term concepts to describe this health information. So you can imagine that if you are studying very specific billing codes from electronic health record data, that is a specific subset of concepts or health information that you can choose to bring into a data set for analysis. We also have concepts related to demographics or answers to survey questions. So the easiest way to think about a concept set is really, this is the set of rows that you are choosing to pull in from the larger data set for analysis. The final piece here, and this will probably be clearest during the actual demonstration portion, are values. So as you've built out, here's the subset of participants I want to study, and here are the specific rows of data I want to study, we also give you the chance within our Dataset Builder tool to fine-tune which columns are relevant for your analysis. And at the end of this process, the result is you went from all possible people and rows and columns of data in this massive data set to a much smaller, manageable section of data relevant to your specific analysis. So let me transfer over very quickly to a live demo of our tools. I'd like to remind everybody on the call that this is a synthetic data set. So none of the information you're seeing today is going to be on real participants. So if you see any discrepancies with numbers that you've noticed in the real data set, again, it's because we are using fake data here. So what you see here is I have built a workspace. It's called Office Hours and it's dated for today's date. The point of my workspace is to demo the tool to you today. And in any of your workspaces, the way that you access the tools that I'm talking about today is through our Data tab. So as you saw in the smaller screenshot that I grabbed in the earlier slide deck, here is your gateway to accessing our cohort building tool, and here is your gateway to accessing our dataset building tool. To make sure we understand the context of how cohorts, concept sets, and data sets fit together, I'm going to go through a fairly quick demo of building a cohort. This is going to be a very simplistic cohort. I know the majority of the researchers on this call have much more sophisticated cohorts. But again, the point is just to show how these pieces fit together. So let's say here that I'm interested in studying a group of participants that I know have been billed for having a breast cancer condition within their electronic health record data. Within the cohort building tool, I can select criteria for including participants in my data set. So here I'm going to go into conditions and I'm just going to quickly search breast cancer. Within the cohort builder tool, you'll see results related to my search term here. I could have searched for a very specific SNOMED code here if I had known that previously. So we have a lot of flexibility. Again, if you want a deeper dive into this tool, please review the recording from last office hours if you weren't able to attend live. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and select this top level. I have about 2,000 fake participants that have this billing code, and I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. The next thing I'm interested in doing, let's say in this example, I really want to understand how these participants have described their overall health as part of our All of Us survey on overall health. So this would be their own self-assessment. This would not be data coming from an electronic health record. So I can say not only do I want them to have been billed for this condition, but I also want to go through and I want to select answers to a very specific survey. So I add this criteria that I want to see that they've taken the overall health survey at all. I could go in here and specify very specific survey questions, but again, for the purpose of this demonstration, let's remain here. So while this is calculating my cohort, what I'm about to do is save this. I'm about to name it as, breast cancer plus overall health survey, something to that effect. I might even keep it sweet and say my demo cohort. And I add the description that this is breast cancer plus overall health survey. So at the conclusion of creating a cohort, you have several other options. If you're doing an observational case control study, oftentimes you might want to go back and create a secondary cohort. Maybe this would be your control cohort. In most cases, after the cohort building process, we really encourage investigators to go through a review process where you take a random sample of the participants from the cohort that you've just created, look at their more record level data, and ensure that you have sufficiently built out your cohort definitions to get the correct group of participants relevant to your specific study. That is covered in our previous office hours. What I'm going to do today is kind of jump into the data set building section of our tool set here. So let me go ahead and say I want to create a data set. You'll see within my workspace that in the Dataset Builder tool, I have access to some prepackaged cohorts. Right now, we offer the all participants cohort. as well as any cohorts that as an investigator I have built for my specific research project. So you'll see here that I previously went in and I built a cohort for participants that had autoimmune thrombocytopenia. The reason that I have that cohort, and I'm not sure if we have the investigator who raised this question through our help desk, could you unmute and say hello? If not, I just wanted to mention that I'm going to get into this in more detail in our next section of the office hours. But regardless, I went through the process of creating a very specific cohort relevant to my study. That was the one I previously created. You just saw me create a demo cohort. So here are the cohorts that I could select right now in my workspace to build a data set. Next step I would need to do is say, what subset of the overall data, what rows am I going to pull on my specific, for my specific study? So similar to here, we provide you with a set of prepackaged concept sets that we've seen people use pretty frequently in the tool, and we'll be adding to this list over time. I also have access to any custom concept sets that I've created. So as an example here, let's say that I want to see for the demo cohort that I built, very specific answers to that overall health survey. And I don't yet have the exact concept set I need here to select from. I can create a new one by clicking this blue plus sign here. And I can either search across all of the data we have to find the exact data that I want, the exact concepts I'm interested in studying, or I can go, in this case, to my very specific survey that I'm interested in studying, and I can select, let's say I'm very interested in how people with breast cancer describe their social satisfaction. I'm also very, very interested in understanding how they've characterized their general health and perhaps their general mental health. I can select from all of these possible concepts, add them to what we call a concept set, and if I have an existing one that I want to add to or modify, I can choose to do that, or I can create a brand new set. This is going to be my demo concept set. So at this point in my process, I had created a cohort. I've created a custom set of concepts that describe the data on this cohort that I'm really interested in studying. I can now create a data set to use in my analysis. So here, I'm going to select my demo cohort, and I definitely know I want to select my demo concept set. And you'll see that right now, I would only be pulling in information about those specific concept sets, or those specific concepts. So if I clicked preview to see what this data set would look like, I'm going to see for these participants a lot of survey answers. So because of the way I built that demo concept set, you can see this data set contains information about how those participants answered questions related to their physical health and their general health, etc. If I also want to pull demographic data into an analysis, I have to be intentional about selecting demographic concept sets. So that's why we have this as one of our top prepackaged concept sets. So here I go. I'm selecting demographics. I now have both my survey concept set, my demographics concept set selected. You can see when I get to the stage of selecting values, this is expanded. Not only do I get the ability to choose values related to surveys, I also get to see values related to the person table. And if I generate a new preview, you'll see that not only will my data set contain a data frame related to survey information, but now I'm also getting demographic information that's available for study. At this point, this looks great. I decide that I don't really need to customize any of the columns. If I did, for instance, want to customize by maybe removing a column that's not relevant for my analysis, I could choose to do so here by selecting or unselecting values. If I didn't know what a value meant, I could learn more in our data dictionary. But at this point, I feel comfortable. I'm going to save and analyze this, and this is going to be my demo data set. In this case, I want to export it to a notebook. I'm going to create a new notebook. And I'm going to do it in Python programming language, because that's the language I'm most comfortable analyzing this data in. So we're not going to go in this section into the notebook analysis portion of these tools. Instead, I'm going to pause for a few minutes, and I want to make sure people understand this relationship that I've just painted between cohorts, concept sets, and data sets. And then I'm going to, after that, go into the differences in the way Cohort Builder does search versus Concept Set Builder does search. So I'm stopping here. I'm going to go back to our data page, and I'm going to open the floor for your questions. So mic goes to the folks on the call. Are there any questions at this stage? All right. Maybe at this point I can say, somebody unmute and tell me whether or not they understand, or that they do understand, or this is helpful, or can I go into more detail? I just want to make sure I'm definitely answering the questions for folks on this call.
Good so far.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see who spoke up. Is that Brian?
This is Brian.
Excellent. Brian, what institution are you from?
I just joined the faculty at Meharry Medical College and was previously at Medical University of South Carolina.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thanks for joining us today, and I really appreciate you participating in the call, and thank you again to everybody for joining, even though we were a few minutes late. Okay, so going with what Brian is saying here, that this is fairly clear, the next major question that we've gotten through our help desk, and I'll be frank, we've identified this as a pain point in the current user experience, is that when you search for very specific things in our cohort building tool, you get slightly different answers than when you search within our Concept Set Selector tool. And I'm going to explain why. And then we can spend as much time as we need to going in to sort of the why of current state. And then I'm actually going to give you a sneak preview into what we're doing to address this. So I think in general, I hope this speaks to the fact that as our beta users, as researchers at this very early stage in our platform's life, your feedback is actively informing improvements to our tools. So this is kind of showcasing exactly how that works. Let's go back into our cohort builder now. I'm going to search for autoimmune thrombocytopenia. And you'll see here that the tool, the cohort builder tool, returns a count of 183 people that have this particular SNOMED code. I'm going to duplicate this tab for a second, and you're going to see how this looks within our other tool. So let's go Dataset Builder. I'm going to access the Concept Set Selector, and I'm actually going to put these two windows side by side so you can see exactly what it looks like. So on the left-hand side here, I have the the cohort builder, where I've searched for autoimmune thrombocytopenia. And over here, I'm in my Concept Set Selector, which is a little bit of a mouthful. And I'm also going to search for not only the same keyword, but I can truly search for the exact SNOMED code here that refers to this, this concept. And this is an audience participation question. What is wrong with this picture? What did we notice that's different in the two counts that we see?
The numbers don't match.
Thank you, Lori. Exactly. So the numbers do not match between Cohort Builder and Concept Set Selector. The reason is because Cohort Builder has built-in hierarchical search that allows you to include parent and child questions. And in the current state, Concept Set Selector only allows you to search for child concepts. So this is much easier to see with the relationship between a parent and a child when you go to the hierarchy view. And I'll show you how I did that again a little bit more slowly. So within the Cohort Builder, you currently have the option to select hierarchy. And in doing so, the tool is going to go through and it's going to show you where the term you selected lives within a much larger hierarchy. Right now, I'm searching through conditions, and in conditions, the standard vocabulary that we use is SNOMED. And so within the SNOMED vocabulary, you can see that this is a parent of these child concepts. And even under here, you have an additional layer in the hierarchy where we see children underneath this parent concept. So Cohort Builder allows you to select participants or select criteria at a parent level, whereas Concept Set Selector does not. You're only getting people that have a child concept where they were billed for this particular condition. Does that make sense, or do we need to spend a little bit more time kind of going through that? So feel free.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Bijan here from Arizona. So
Yep.
I have a question. So in the concept builder, we can only have the child. So we can
Yep.
stack multiple ones to get like the original tree, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct. You're welcome. You can stack multiple child concepts to get the original tree. And so again, that hierarchy tool is very helpful and very useful. But a little bit of historical context on why this is current state. So when we were building out these tools were created by two very different engineering teams where we've been pulling together some of the best tools from our larger set of organizations and making them available within the researcher workbench. And recognizing that, listening to our users, that it's a very similar process that you're walking through when you're searching through the data building cohorts and when you're searching through the data building concept sets. One of the major initiatives that we've got going on right now is actually to unify this search experience. And so right now, as we just described, there is a workaround here. As long as you know the fact that this is allowing you to select for parents as well as children, and this is only child concepts, you can sort of bottom-up build your concept set to make sure it accounts for all of the various concepts that you want to get. But that's kind of a painful workaround, and we recognize that. And so we're actually in the middle of the process implementing changes to our set of tools so that the search experience is actually the same between our Concept Set Selector and our Cohort Builder. This means—
Hey, Kelsey.
Go ahead.
So I'm just looking at the screen on the left. So where does a 6 come from?
So in this specific example, I believe the 6 comes from individuals who had this essentially as a source code, like a source code. And forgive me for this specific example, I haven't done the math here, but it should be anybody who had this as a child. Yeah, and forgive me because I'm looking here. My automatic assumption would be that the 6 are equivalent to this 6, but I don't know that I want to write that in ink right now. So let me take that back and make sure that it's not like a synthetic data artifact that you're seeing here.
Yeah.
But yeah, because that's the other challenge in working with synthetic data. But the overall message here is that we are confident the discrepancy is because this is for parents and children, and you're seeing all levels of the hierarchy, and you're only seeing children here. Does that
I think the 6 is because those 6 got the parent assigned to them directly instead of the child. So they don't have any children assigned to them.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And that's because of the way that we get our data from our different EHR contributors. And so all of the electronic health record data that we get in the All of Us research program is provided to us by partner sites. And these sites, as anybody who works with electronic health record data know, go through a fairly intensive process of coding and mapping that data into our standard data model, which we use OMOP in this program. And so in the case that we just discussed, if a researcher had gone through, if a data steward at one of these healthcare institutions had taken participants' data and directly coded it as this SNOMED code, and it wasn't, it wasn't a child of some higher level code in the hierarchy, then we would see this 6 here. So this is a result of the way that these electronic health record site contributors are coding the data. Other questions? So in the next 15 minutes, I just sort of wanted to tell you a little bit more about, again, how we're addressing this pain point. So one of the first things that we're doing right now is you'll notice that within our Cohort Builder tool, the process of searching through and adding information as criteria to a cohort is in this little wizard. And so we realized that in order to harmonize search across tools, the first step would be to essentially rip out this search wizard and make it a much more modular feature within our system that would be full screen, and you could access not only from the Cohort Builder, but also our Concept Set Selector tool. And then the second thing that we're going to do is literally pull the best of both search experiences, so that regardless of whether or not you're searching for criteria to build a cohort or you're searching for concepts to build a concept set, you actually have the exact same search interface. And as I mentioned, we are actively working on this right now, and we're hoping to release this hopefully in November of this year. That's our target timeline. And we'll continue to keep everybody in the Workbench updated as we make progress on this milestone and as we deliver these feature enhancements to you. Questions?
So I tried adding a whole bunch of labs, and I think it gave me an upper limit of like 1,000 concepts.
Right. So where did you encounter this limit in the dataset building process, or as just a limit within the Concept Set Selector tool?
At the concept level right now.
If you have that many concepts, our assumption was that it's actually more efficient to do that type of operation programmatically within the notebook itself. So to be pulling concepts directly within the Jupyter notebook. And if that's the, so I guess that would be our recommendation at this point is you could create, multiple concept sets, or you could just go straight into the Jupyter Notebook and do that operation programmatically rather than building in within our user interface here.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And then that's kind of the same thing to keep in mind as well, is that these tools are really just to help with the overall data subsetting experience. But technically, it is possible to go straight into a Jupyter Notebook and pull participants, pull data sets, pull concepts programmatically within a notebook. And we've got examples of how to do this within our featured workspaces. And we can also answer any questions on that or go into a deeper dive on that in future office hours, if there's interest.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Feedback for our team, things that you think are really important for this whole experience that we should take under consideration as we do a redesign of the search across Concept Set Selector? Feedback on support materials, anything that we can do to be more helpful as researchers are getting started on their projects. So I'll again, in the spirit of audience participation, welcome anybody on the call to unmute and tell us the thing they've liked best about the Workbench so far and the thing they found most painful about the Workbench so far, or where you see we have the biggest opportunity to improve.
Hello. Hi. So currently the data dictionary is a separate document that you go through the documentation, and I think it could be possible to have, I guess, the nature of the data a bit more integrated into the Workbench. Because currently, I'm looking at the Excel sheet because I'm like to approach the data programmatically. I just go straight into the notebook, just do it straight in SQL, and Yeah, kind of having like a more integrated like reference for the I guess data dictionary rather than kind of like a link to a Google Sheet would be cool. And then also if beyond just a Jupyter Notebook environment, if it was kind of more like a Jupyter Lab, like allowing like file navigation and stuff like that, because I'm often having to, I create like aggregated like summary stats, which had to go into like a report or something like that. And then through like a Jupyter Notebook system, that's kind of a bit more complicated than like a Jupyter Lab environment.
That's great feedback. Thank you. Our whole team is on here. We're writing this down, and I assure you we'll take it under consideration. And I think, as a matter of fact, any specific questions that you raise here, we'll make sure that we answer within our community forum so that all users of the Workbench are able to see, how we've taken your feedback and under consideration.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? That was great. Again, sort of the prompt is things that you think we're doing really well and things where we really need to improve, or you have perhaps a new feature or tool request that would really make you more successful doing research within the bench.
Hello. I just noticed a very small issue
Mm-hmm.
when working with concept sets.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we search something in the concept set builder,
Mm-hmm.
and you select it and you want to add something else and you search something else, you lose the previously selected item. And you have to, it's kind of adding the concepts one by one. It's kind of frustrating.
Right. So that's excellent feedback. Thank you so much. So basically, when I'm in this process, I'm going to go through and let's say I'm searching, we'll just use conditions. I'll go with my breast cancer example. So let's say that I wanted to search for breast cancer as condition, and I select this here, and then I were to go in and search for something else like diabetes, and click here. That right now the tool isn't remembering that I previously had selected breast cancer. I have to go intentionally and add to set each one of these. I think your feedback, if I'm understanding correctly, is that it'd be really nice if, when I'm in the process of building my concept set, that I'm able to add things in a much more fluid manner, that it's a little bit clunky right now. Is that correct? Like sort of it's smart enough to remember what I previously selected?
Yeah, exactly. For example, it's very painful if you want to include many lab variables, and you have to do them one by one.
I completely agree. And actually, I've got good news for you. I don't have the wireframes up yet, but as part of this redesigned experience, we're changing the way that you do that sort of add to criteria or add a concept set. And so if you can just use your imagination with me at this point, since I don't have quick access to those wireframes, by selecting this will actually feel a lot like the cohort builder process, where this is a little plus sign here. And when I click the plus sign, it's going to essentially add to a shopping cart. It's a much more, if I were using Amazon and I'm adding things to my cart, that's what this is going to feel like. Where I click here, it adds to my cart, and then I can continue to search around and continue to add things to my cart with a click of a button. And then after I'm all done selecting all of the things relevant to my concept set, then I'll get the opportunity to save it. So we actually are planning to address that specific pain point the same time that we're planning to unify concept and cohort search.
That's great. Yeah, that was exactly what I wanted to see.
Awesome. Other questions? We've got about 4 more minutes. And I'd love to keep hearing from you. These are fabulous suggestions and questions.
So I think this is more of a data question, but I was wondering which of the data is PII and which one's EHR? How can we distinguish?
That's a great question. So you said PII. I think you might have meant what we call PPI, or participant information.
Yes.
So this goes into the source to standard concept relationship. So again, I don't have the right figures up on the table, but I'm happy to make sure that we provide you with the relevant material or support article in that community forum. Essentially, if I am looking at our harmonized data set and I'm looking at something like measurements, this is a good example because the OMOP data model has a measurements table, and there we store information from like height information that came from EHR data, as well as height information that participants have as part of their baseline evaluation in the All of Us research program. So not EHR, this is a All of Us program physical measurement. Both of those heights are mapped into a standard that we show in the measurements table. And so if you want to distinguish a height that came from participant provided information or a height that came from EHR information, you need to look for the source concept ID. And the participant provided information actually has a PPI source concept. There's a really good example of how to do this in our featured workspace that's called, I think, Working with Physical Measurements or something of that sort, where it really shows exactly how to differentiate between information that comes from PPI and information that comes from participant provided information.
Thank you.
And EHR, sorry. You're welcome. 2 more minutes. Any other questions or feedback for us?
So far, this has been awesome. These office hours have been very helpful and have cleared up a lot. So I just want to thank you guys for that.
You're very, very welcome. And, you know, I'm sure that our support team has mentioned this, but just to emphasize it again, these office hours are really to support every one of our researchers on the platform. If you have specific topics that you want us to go into and cover, please, 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 you know, let us know. And we are right now, I think, experimenting on a bi-weekly basis. We could even do these weekly if there's a really big demand for it. So I guess, you know, a big thank you from our team for your participation during this call. We really look forward to delivering an upgraded experience to Concept Set Search. And I hopefully that what I'm communicating to you is that we're listening to your feedback and we're actively delivering improved solutions to these pain points that you're surfacing. So continue to interact with us and give us your feedback, and we're always going to do our best to improve your experience. And I think with that, we're at the top of the hour. So I'm going to close out and toss it back to anybody from the support team. Brandy, if you'd like to say thank you as well, or have any other.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kelsey. And like Kelsey was saying, we're so appreciative of this opportunity to connect with you all and figure out where we can best help. We would love ideas for future office hour sessions. Right now, we're sort of categorizing these in a thematic way as a researcher would move forward through the journey within the workbench. But if there are specific topics outside of tools or project planning that you have in mind, anything related to sort of the structure of our workspaces, or if there's just an open feedback session that would be helpful, we'd love to hear about that. In our support hub right now, there's a community forum. Within that community forum, you can post some ideas for us. You can also share those with us via the Contact Us link within the Workbench. So thank you all so much.